This is Will Tchakirides interviewing Central State University President Dr. Morakinyo Kuti for the HBCU Radio Preservation Project. It is 10:22 a.m. on August 12th, 2025. This interview is being recorded at Dr. Kuti's office here on campus at Central State University. All right, how are you doing today, sir?
I'm all right, sir. How are you?
And I'm doing well. Is it okay if I call you Dr. Kuti during this interview?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, we're going to start here. I want you to say your full name for the record and just tell me what your relationship is to the radio station WCSU.
Okay. My name is Morakinyo Kuti. I currently serve as the 10th president at Central State University. My relationship to the radio station is, well, of course, they're a unit of the university, but my personal relationship with the radio station is that I hosted a program called My Favorite Things on WCSU radio on Thursday night from 6 to 9, I believe for about 4 years, which ended in 2023, maybe from 2019 through 2023. I hosted a 3-hour music program at the radio station.
And do I have it correct? Did you also host as a student?
No, I did not host as a student. I hosted as a staff member.
Okay.
I listened as a student, but did not host.
Got it. All right, we're going to take it back a little bit. I want to learn something about where you come from. So if you could tell me when you were born and where you were born and raised.
Okay, thank you for the question. I was born in a city called Ibadan in southwestern Nigeria. But I'm from Abeokuta. So in my culture, where you're born is not necessarily where you're from. So I was born in Ibadan, but my father and my mother were both from Abeokuta, right? My father was in Ibadan from 1964 through 70. I was stationed at a military barracks in Ibadan. So while he was there, was when most of his kids were born. So I was born in Ibadan, stayed in Ibadan until 1972, I believe, and then we moved back to Abeokuta, which is in Ogun State, Nigeria. So born in Ibadan, but I'm from Abeokuta in Ogun State, Nigeria.
And when were you born? What's your birthday?
1965. I was born August 31st, 1965.
Thank you. And what are your parents' names?
My father, both of my parents have passed on. My father's name was Moses Akintoye Olusheye Kuti, hence the M.A.O. Kuti. And my mother's name was Elizabeth Oluroti Kuti.
And can you talk a little bit more about this place and give me a sense of what it felt like to live and grow up there, what it looked like, what it smelled like, what you heard around you?
So it's funny you asked that question because even though I've been in the United States since 1982, I still consider Abeokuta my home. So I was born in Ibadan, but I moved to Abeokuta when I was about 7 years old. And so my father and mother had a house on the street where there was not a lot of houses. And so back then we lived in what you would call a compound. We had a main house, which is where my father stayed. We had what you call a boys' quarters, which is where some of the help stayed. Then we had a guest house, and then we had a store that was all in the same compound. And to me, that was like the best space in the world because I had 5 brothers, no sisters, and several cousins stayed with us. So you could imagine a house of 6 boys with my father and mother. And it was just a joyous place because little traffic came down our road. Nobody came to my street, around my street, unless they were coming to my house. So, and my father was a strict disciplinarian. And my mother provided for us. My father was married to 2 wives when I was growing up. So we had everything we wanted in that compound, and couldn't ask for any more. What did it feel like? It felt like home. What did it smell like? Depends on what was on the stove. And there was always something on the stove, so it was just a glorious experience.
Yeah, actually, would you describe the cuisine a little bit?
So I'll go by my palate. My favorite food was plantains growing up, fried, boiled, roasted. However you made plantain, that was my favorite. Of course, we had the traditional Nigerian stews with chicken, goat meat, cow, and fish. Ate a lot of rice.
And jollof?
Yeah, jollof rice, fried rice, white rice. My favorite was just white rice with stew on it. Rice and beans was popular. A delicacy was pounded yam, which meant that they would pound yam with mortars and pestles, with some kind of egusi or okra soup. And growing up in that house, every meal was prepared fresh. So we get up in the morning, breakfast was prepared just for breakfast. Lunch was prepared from scratch. Dinner was prepared from scratch every day. So now, thinking back about it now, you didn't realize how good of a life that was. You just took that for granted, that every meal came out of the kitchen hot, because there was no storing of food. And my father had a principle. Actually, my father he wouldn't eat the same stew that he had for lunch for dinner. So they had to make 2 different stews every day for him. And he definitely would not have a stew that he ate the day before for the same day. So they actually prepared like 2-3 fresh meals for him every day, and every day was different from the day before. So yeah, and the funny thing was that growing up, there was a bakery down the road from my house, and every day they would deliver 10 loaves of bread to my house. And when they brought them about 4:30, because there were 6 of us, we would eat up half the loaf of bread immediately because they came from the bakery nice and warm. And my mother would have to stop us by saying, hey, if you eat all your bread, that's your breakfast. You're eating the next morning. So that was what got us to stop eating the bread. But yeah, food was good.
Yeah. Can you tell me a little bit more about your mother? What was she like?
My mother was, like I said, very caring. My mother every morning would ask you, did you brush your teeth? Did you comb your hair? Did you put lotion on? Are your shoes clean and all that? She would ask you this series of questions as you were getting ready to go to school or to go to church. And my older brother was closer to my dad and I was closer to my mother. And so, as a matter of fact, for quite a number of years growing up, I slept in my mother's bed. I mean, she had like this king-size bed. She slept on one side and I slept on the other side. And I would also help her. She was also a trader, so I would help her count her money when she came back from shopping to make sure that all the money was there. So my mother and I were very close.
And I know you have a history in finance and business. Is that where you kind of first developed that acumen, that interest in trade?
Yes. I mean, yeah, that was part of my growing up because I realized that, selling something meant that you could get money. And I used to watch my mother because she would sell stuff and people would come to our store to buy stuff. And sometimes I was in the store minding the store, actually sitting and selling stuff for her when people came.
Great. And you mentioned church. What denomination, what was your spiritual upbringing?
So we grew up as Anglican. Here it's called the Episcopalian Church. My church was St. Paul's Church, Igbore. And my father was what they call Baba Ijo, which meant he was the head layman for the church. And because he was the head layman, he had a pew in the front. So, of course, when he arrived at church, it meant that us, his kids, would have to sit in the front pew with him in the church, so you couldn't act up as kids. So, so That was my experience in church.
And then just, with your brothers and family and friends, just give me a sense of what you like to do for fun. What interested you? How do you occupy your time most?
Growing up, we played soccer. We played soccer and we played ping pong. And we went running around the woods. We played soccer, we played ping pong, ran around the house. We played soccer, we played ping pong, ran around the house. And of course, TV back then was not 24 hours. So TV came on about 6 o'clock and went off about 9 or 10 o'clock. But all the time, we played soccer, played ping pong, ran around the house.
And what's happening in Nigeria at that time? Set the context for me, maybe politically or economically. What is happening in the country?
So, for some of us, those were the best days in Nigeria, because, as I said, my father was in Ibadan during the Civil War. So we did not experience the war. Right? I don't want to leave any claim that I was in a war zone. The war was some remote thing away from us. So although we stayed in a military barracks, we did not get any effects of the war. The only effects of the war that I saw was then my father was an orthopedic nurse. And so people would come to the barracks and he would put limbs, prosthetic. I can't say the word. On people's legs and arms. So that was my experience. So I knew there was physical harm and that the war deformed people. But that was my only exposure to the war. And then, so from when I could remember, everything was great in Nigeria. Economically, again, I'm speaking from my point of view, because there's multiple points of view in Nigeria. And so I would consider myself, looking back now, as privileged, because I was the son of a major in the Nigerian army. Then he came back, had his own clinical care. So everything was great to me. I didn't know any better. So politically and economically, Nigeria was great.
What is the class system like in Nigeria?
Back then, we had a lot more middle class than we had now. There was not that disparity between the very rich and the poor. There was still a gap, but not what we have now. So the economy was great. I went to school, came back. Everything was for 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12-year-old kid. I couldn't tell you that things were bad. Everything was okay from my point of view.
And what was the schooling and the education system like when you grew up?
So, excuse me. I grew up and I went to Catholic school called St. Benedict's Primary School in Abeokuta, Ibadan. That's what I went to do for what we call primary school, which here would equate to, I guess, elementary, because I was from age 6 to 10, right? I was a year ahead of education. So from age 6 to 10, I went to St. Benedict's Primary School in Ibadan. And then after that, I went to Comprehensive High School, Ayetoro, which was a boarding school. And I went from age 10 to 15. And both of those schools had to get in. So again, from my point of view, I didn't think of it as had to get in. I'm just a kid growing up. My father said, you're going to St. Benedict's Primary School. I knew it was a special school, but I didn't know what it meant to go there. But it was a private Catholic school. And then after that, I went to St. Comprehensive High School, Ayetoro, which was a school that was founded by the Western government of Nigeria, the Ford Foundation at Harvard University, and it was based on American high school system.
Okay. I am curious, thinking about culture and particularly music, was music on in the house? Was music being heard? Was it something that interested you in any capacity?
From the very beginning. My father had a piano in in the house. And my oldest brother played the organ for my church. And they tried their best to teach all of us how to play the piano, but we were too busy playing soccer and playing ping pong that none of my brothers, other than my oldest brother, played the piano. We just wanted to be out there having fun. One of the regrets of my life was that I didn't actually take time to learn how to play the piano. But even at that age, I was heavy into music. Now, I couldn't sing it. Well, initially growing up, before my voice broke, they said boy's voice broke, I had a very high voice, so I could sing what we call then falsetto. But I was not in the choir, but I could sing. But even then, I took a liking to music that my father always took us to. To me, Christmas was about carols. Was going to sing carols at people's houses, going to church, listen to carols. So that's what Christmas was about. And I started listening to music and getting involved in music at that age. That when I went to high school, I had what we called back then a boombox. And we had cassette tapes. Back in those days, you would record cassette tapes, and if the tapes broke, you would use Scotch tape, put on the tape and cut it. And my friend and I, in high school, were known to have probably the biggest music collection. And I'm talking about Nigerian music, Western music, all kinds of music, that people will come to us and say, hey, do you have this record? Can I borrow your tape? Things like that. So I loved music, I would say from age 8, 9, even though I knew I couldn't play a lick, I loved listening to music.
Well, tell me about the Western music you're listening to, but I'm also really interested in the Nigerian music you're listening to at that time.
So the Western music we were listening to was rhythm and blues, right? I mean, back in those days, my brother had come to Harvard to go to college to get his master's degree. So he came back with like Ray Charles, all this way, Nat King Cole, Ari Belafonte, Barry White. He came back with all these records.
Standards.
Classics, because he was into jazz. So he came back with all these records, so we would still and listen to his records while he was at work. So, and then when I grew up, became a teenager, we're talking about like Kool and the Gang, all the rhythm and blues stars, Michael Jackson, Cameo, the old original Cameo, not the Cameo that came out later in the 80s. So Luther Vandross and Change, Sister Sledge, Donna Summer, all these people we were listening to back in Nigeria. Those were the music that we listened to back then. And of course, Bob Marley, heavy into reggae. Bob Marley, U-Roy, I-Roy, all these reggae stars that are not that popular here, we were listening to back then in Nigeria.
And then what about sort of Afrobeat and Nigerian music?
So back then, it was Fela and Abeokuta Kuti. Now, we share the same last name, but we're not related. But he was from the same town, Abeokuta. So I knew about Fela, musician called Ebenezer Obey, who was also from Abeokuta, a very popular juju musician. Sonny Ade, Prince Abiodun, Victor Olaiya. And so and then I also took a liking to High Life, because High Life was Nigerian music that was around before I was born. Okay. But I actually, at that age, started listening to music that was before I was born, which was like Bobby Benson, Victor Olaiya, all these other guys that played High Life music.
So you're listening on cassette and the boombox, but is radio also a part of this?
Yeah, so not really. We had so back then in Nigeria, the radio was controlled by the government. So we had the Nigerian national radio, and then we had the state radio. And on the state radio, they talked mostly about government programs and a little bit of music. So it was mostly going to the record store and buying records. And I remember record store back in those days in Nigeria. You'd go in, they'd have albums on the wall, and then they'll put their speaker outside and play the music that they're selling. So that's how you know you're going by the record store. You say, they're actually playing the music they're selling, and then you go inside. And then you have some people that came to the States or to England, bought the actual records, brought it back. And it's funny now, we used to say, well, this album is actually the one from abroad. So, like when there was a double album, right? Mm-hmm. The double album I'm trying to describe it for people who don't know. Yeah. A double album is actually 2 LPs, and the album will be a folder. One album, one record, one disc in one layer, in one sleeve, and another record in the other sleeve. So when you open it up, it would be like a book, right? So those are the ones that came from abroad. Well, people in Nigeria would then create their own double album, except instead of it opening like a sleeve, it would be one box where you put both records in one album with a piece of paper between them. So that's how you would distinguish, okay, this one is the original and it's the real one, and this is the one that was made in Nigeria. But that's how we used to get the records, both LPs and LCs.
And how about the role of music at sort of social events or parties or dances? Are there sound systems being set up?
Oh, yeah. So in Nigeria, so I'll tell you a funny story.
Yeah.
So in Nigeria, I don't know, for people, Nigerians are considered one of the happiest people in the world. We celebrate everything. So we used to have parties, right? And they would have live bands, right? You'd have famous live bands that play nationally, and then local live bands that play in a city, and then local bands that play just in a neighborhood. And then you also have records, right? So the thing used to be in Nigeria, and now I'm going to go back again I'm asking people to, if you were not there, you can only imagine. So back in the day, when you put a pin on a record, right, before it starts playing, you hear that shh, and then the music would start, right? So back in Nigeria, they used to have some parties and people that said, hey, some people, as soon as you put the pin on the LP and that stands before the music starts, people are flocking to your house because like, oh, it's about to start. So music was a big part of the Nigerian culture, especially when it came to parties. Either the live band or by the record. For us younger ones, it was by the record, and so that's actually, I started listening to music then and started playing music, and that's why I got my initial affinity to be a DJ, playing music so people could enjoy records.
And you weren't a DJ until much later, or is that something you did start doing earlier?
So I started doing it then, where I would go to party and play records. We were not. So when I say DJ, we were not like talking. DJ to us then meant, okay, this guy is going to the party and he's the one that's going to be responsible for the music.
I see.
And so people always, when I was like 15, 16, always knew that, okay, I had all the records and I had the latest records that they wanted me to come and play music at their parties.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, so you mentioned your brother had gone to the States and went to Harvard. I'm just curious what your impressions were of the U.S. even before that point, and then when he went and would return, how did that shape your sense, your understanding of the United States?
So we just thought that, so my impression of the United States was formed through multiple means. The school that I went to, Comprehensive High School, as I said, was formed because of the efforts of the Western government of Nigeria, the Ford Foundation, and Harvard University. In my school, we actually had football helmets, like American football helmets. We had baseball pads. We had all the American sporting equipment. We had a basketball court, everything. Keep in mind, none of this sport I played anywhere else in Nigeria. So my first introduction into what American education and what America was like was through the school. And also we had teachers from the States that were actually teaching at the school. So we had exposure then to Americans who were teaching at the school and these American sports. So that was my first introduction into like American education and American high school life. So that's one portion. And then of course, back in those days, American culture was being propagated into Western Nigeria. So we saw American films, American music, and all those elements. So I had different routes into the American experience through education, through music, through film. So we saw the Shaft movies, all the American music. That's how we got our introduction into American experience. And of course, American movies with the crime, the drama and all that people thought that, oh, everywhere in America people had guns, you have to be careful where you go in America and all that. So we saw all those cowboy Western movies and things like that.
You know, it makes me think of that recent documentary that came out, that James Baldwin documentary where he's thinking about all of the imagery and the ideas of the West and what it looked like in America and how that shaped minds, and particularly Black folk and other people of color and people around the world and people in America. How did you think about race with all of these different cultural forms coming at you at that age?
So when it came to race, right? Yeah. So you must understand, I live in a country where to see a Caucasian was, I would say 99.9% of people didn't say a Caucasian or interacted with one, right? So I grew up in a culture where race was not a factor. We had other factors like tribalism and all that, but race wasn't a big deal. But we did realize, because of our introduction into American culture, especially through African American experience, that there was racism in America, right? We knew about the concept, but not the daily impact of it, right? Like it was just like, oh, we knew Martin Luther King, we knew Malcolm X, we knew Muhammad Ali, we knew Martin Luther King, and of course, if you listen to the music of Bob Marley and all that, you know all these things about racism and oppression, right? But they were concepts, not real things. So we were aware of the discrimination in American culture and what it did to African Americans, but we did not know the practical impact of it. But we identified, because also remember James Brown and all these African American artists all came to Nigeria and talked about their experiences in America.
Oh, wow.
So we knew there was racism in America, but it was not a direct experience.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned those freedom fighters, because I'm thinking, like, how did you square your sense and what you're learning about folks like Dr. King and Malcolm X and others with, say, the Clint Eastwoods or the John Waynes and those portrayals of race and class and the West and all of these different ideas and imagery? That's where that question is coming from.
Right. So we were not naive.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, we saw Clint Eastwood, John Wayne, all these guys as cowboys and all that. But we also knew that there was racial problems in America because we saw what all these prominent African Americans came to do in Nigeria, came to say in Nigeria, and how they reacted in Nigeria. Yeah. So we knew that race was not, that there were racism in America, and that there was inequalities in the American culture.
Okay, and what prompts you to want to leave for the United States?
That's a great story. That's a great question. So, as I said, back then, Nigeria was going through some kind of economic turmoil, right? And that meant that we had a military government from 1966 to 75, right? And that government was overthrown, and then another military government took over. And so in 79, we transferred to civilian rule. Mm. And during that time, there was a lot of strikes by university professors, and universities were closed quite a lot, right? Because the faculty and the staff of the university would strike because they were bargaining with the government. So the higher educational system was not functioning as it should. Now remember I said my brother had gone abroad to study in the 70s. So again, this will talk about African culture. Mm-hmm. So because the education system wasn't going well, too many strikes, my father decided that my brother and I were going to go to America for college education. So he said we were going to go to the school that admitted us. So I had an uncle that lived in Maryland and worked at the University of Maryland as a professor. And then my father had a friend that had studied at Ohio State University, but came to Central State University and taught some classes during the summer as an adjunct. So my father said, you guys are going to apply to University of Maryland and Central State University to go abroad to go to school. Whichever school admits you first, that's where you're going. So we applied. We got a CSU letter of admission. Here I am at Central State University, April 1, 1982. The intention was we will go to, so my father had a plan for all of his kids. Yeah. He had decided that my oldest, the brother right ahead of me was going to go to law school, and I was going to do an MBA. So my brother came, and he was going to go back to London or Nigeria to get his law degree, because to get to practice law in Nigeria, you had to go to Nigerian law school. And I was supposed to come here, do my undergraduate, get an MBA, and come back to Nigeria after 4 years.
Did you come into any conflict with your father's plan for your life? How did you were okay with that?
No. So remember, this is Nigeria in 1979. There's no conflict between your father's plan.
The expectation is the plan.
Yeah, there's no, oh, well, my daddy wants me to do this, but I'm actually thinking about doing something else. No. It was like, okay, this is what you're going to do. Yes, sir. Okay.
And so you are an international student coming to a historically black college or university. I do want to know what that feels like when you're first stepping foot on the campus, but I also just want to know, did you have a sense of what HBCUs were and what their legacy was or what they meant in this country?
No. I didn't know. I knew that it was a historical black college and university, but I didn't know what that meant. I just knew I was going to school.
And what did it feel like when you first set foot on this campus? What did you see? What did you hear? That same question about place. What was it?
So I remember it like it was yesterday. We took a yellow cab from the Dayton airport to the campus. And he took us the back road, which meant we went through the woods. He didn't come the highway. So we went through farmland, cows and things like that. And my brother and I are going, where are we going? I'm 17, my brother is 18, because this is 1982, April 1. And we had our suitcases. He pulls up in front of the administration building, the building we're sitting in now. Pulls into the parking lot. We take out our suitcases. And we say, where where do we go next? And somebody advises us, oh, you're going to Ontario, to the International Students Office, and you're going to see Mr. Sparks. So my brother and I, middle of the day, drag our suitcases across the sunken garden, go to Ontario to see Mr. Sparks. And I noticed that we're going across campus and we're passing these buildings, and I see all these cars on campus. I mean, hundreds of cars. And my brother and I are going, wow, they sure do have a lot of staff here, because who has all these cars? And then later on we realized, no, those were not staff cars, those were students' cars, which to us was students are driving on the university. This many students are driving on the university campus. So that was our first day, was dropped off, walk across campus, go to see Mr. Sparks, and see all these cars and all these buildings, and we're looking around naive, because he's 18 and I'm 17.
Yeah. Any other differences you want to mention that from schools abroad and schools here?
The other thing was the food.
Yeah, talk about it.
The food and the dining times. So when we got here, I think dinner ended like at 6:30. In Nigeria, we don't start eating dinner till like 7:30 or 8. And we were in the dormitory, right? And of course, we're in Wilberforce, Ohio. And there's limited choices. So after one quarter, because we're on quarter system back then, we decided, oh, we can't stay here. We cannot stay on campus because the food choices are limited and the time is limited for us to eat. So that's why we moved off campus.
Okay. Now I want you to talk about what the campus culture was like, homecoming and football and the student body life, the social life of the campus. What stands out from that time, especially maybe that first year, and how you're feeling?
The Breezeway. We used to have a place on campus called the Breezeway, which is where students hung out during the day. And the Breezeway was like this space between it was a space between two buildings, right? So it was like a path through two buildings on either side. There was also a gap between the next building. So that's where students hung out, and we called it the Breezeway. And people would play music, and students would sit around, right? And people would rotate music between dorms. So people would put speakers in their window, right? So you could have a set of speakers here, they would play one song, and then you go to the other side, they will play another song, and then there was also music in the Breezeway. So that's where students would hang out all the time and just talk. We also had the student center that had a pool tables, ping pong, and then football. And then we had a bowling lane. And then in the ward center, we also had a full restaurant that served hamburgers, chicken, fish, and alcohol, like beer and wine, until midnight, until 11 p.m. or midnight during the week, until 1 a.m. on the weekends. So I'm setting the stage for this is outside the campus life, outside the classroom life on campus back in those days. And in the classroom, you had dedicated faculty and staff who were willing to give you assistance outside of the classroom to make you, to ensure you were successful. And between class, we'd sit in the parking lot just talking. And the hallways in Smith Hall were full. So the environment was like you were at home because you had faculty who supported you in class. You had your friends and your peers that are around you all the time, either in the classroom, in the breezeway, in all those areas. And then for social activities, there was almost always a party on campus Friday and Saturday every day. Either it was given by one sorority or fraternity or some other group. So there was something to do all the time.
Did you pledge?
No, I did not pledge. All of my friends were alphas. Some of my classmates to this day, when we come back for homecoming and all that, be like, "Oh, you're an alpha, right?" And I'm like, "No, I never pledged. I just hung around with a lot of alphas, and but I was involved with other campus organizations, and I was not a member of SGA, but I was a campaign manager for my friend OZ, who became SGA vice president. May his soul rest in peace. He died in 2022. But I was very heavily engaged in university life.
And talk about homecoming a little bit and what it was like that first homecoming and what you saw and heard and what it's been like since when you are able to participate in later years.
So my first homecoming, I left. I wasn't on campus because I had friends that lived in DC, right? Mm. So we took off and went to DC because we're like, homecoming is for alumni. Never made that mistake again. Because then we came to appreciate what homecoming was. Because then we had artists on campus. And I recall, I don't know if it was a homecoming or not, but once my friend became the SGA vice president, I actually became more involved in activities for students. And Phyllis Hyman came to perform. She was a soul singer back then. She came to perform at Central State University. And my friend and I were the ones that actually went to the airport to go pick her up for a performance on campus. So, yeah, I became more heavily engaged in campus activities. And that's when I actually became what you would call a DJ, with a mixer and 2 turntables, doing house parties for CSU students, mostly international students.
And what are you spinning when you're DJing at house parties?
Oh, back then, these were the days of the Michael Jackson Thriller album, the Prince Purple Rain, the Lionel Richie, what's the name of the album? Come on, Morax. It's the song that All Night Long, that song is on that album. These are the days of One Way. This is now, Cameo is back. We had Trouble Funk. We had, Frankie Beverly and Maze. So these are the artists that are reigning then. So those were the records that I was spinning back in those days. Wilberforce and Shaka Khan, Ain't Nobody. So these were the records that I'm playing back then.
Lionel Richie had his self-titled and Can't Slow Down?
Yes.
Yeah. You mentioned joining organizations. Was it just helping out with that student government campaign, or were you a part of some other organizations?
Well, I was a member of academic organizations like the Finance Club. I was a member of the International Students Organization. Let me see. I purposefully did not join a frat.
How come?
Because back in the days, when they said pledging, it took a 6-week period, and you had to do some things, like they would shave like the only organization I considered joining back then was an Alpha. I never considered any other frat. But they would shave your head. You would have to get a tattoo. You'd be somewhere on campus in the public, just standing still even though it's raining, howling, and things like that.
So the hazing was a little...
Yeah, I wouldn't use the word.
Turn-off.
Let's not use the word hazing.
Oh, okay.
The rites of passage.
The rites of passage, excuse me.
And I was like, I'm too confident and too arrogant of a guy for anybody to be doing these things to me. So while my very close friends went through the rites of passage, I'm like, I'm not doing this. And I as a matter of fact, back then, my brother and I, we used to smoke cigarettes. So we said our fraternity is either me fight me or mal fight borrow. But we were like, we're not going through the rites of passage to join any organizations. Even though we admired all the things they did, we were just like, nah, I'm not doing that.
Mm. I'm wondering if you can also sort of speak to the political climate on campus, and what I really mean by that is, what are people interested in terms of politics and activism? Is there any student protest happening on campus? Are people raising issues around a particular cause or thing? What is the cause of the day, and how are people responding?
We were very, very active student organization. Like I said, I wasn't a member of the formal group, but I was one of the what I would call kingmakers or agitators, and we were very active. We led, look at it now. We led protests against the administration back then for what we would consider, we didn't like the food in the cafeteria, or we were not getting responses in an adequate manner. So we would carry placards outside this administration building and protest. Now, we never shut anything down, but we were active. We would protest, we'd advocate our case, respectfully but forcefully. So I was active in student organization, but we were advocating for our reasons on campus, not for other external political things. It was simply what we felt we deserved as students.
Okay. So you kept it local. This might be a little bit earlier, depending on how it moved campus to campus, but the South African anti-apartheid movement, right, or something, was that an issue on campus at that point?
Oh, that was an issue on campus, but we did not protest because we had the support of the administration, right? Mm-hmm. So we protest, we advocated for that in collaboration with the administration, not against the administration.
And in your studies, not just the mathematics and finance and such, but more in the humanities, I guess, and the arts. What are you learning about the United States? Perhaps African American history and that lineage in this country. How is your sense of this place changing as a result? So
that's a very good question. Back in those days, every student at Central State was required to take African American history as a class. That's when I truly understood and I appreciated what an HBCU was and the African American experience outside of what we saw in music and in movies. So that was a cultural eye opener. It's okay. This is the African American experience in the United States, not what you saw in the movies. And back then, I had a professor named Marvin Hare, and he taught American national government and other political classes. And he's the one that showed us, helped us start listening to music like Jill Scott Heron, that the revolution would not be televised, John Coltrane, and all these other musicians that talked about social work and things like that. So it was in those humanities classes that we developed a much greater understanding of the African American experience, and truly enabled us to appreciate what an HBCU was, and how we were blessed to come to Central State University. And that I'm glad now that I came here instead of to the University of Maryland.
Yeah. Now, I also want to get a sense of being from Nigeria and essentially an immigrant from Africa, what your relationship was to Black Americans, African Americans who are who were born and have an extended history in this country. What challenges did that present? If any.
So, I don't know if this was always meant to be, but I was more of an open mind than my other Nigerian friends. Because we all come with prejudices and thoughts and things like that, cultural. Even regarding our fellow Africans. Because when I came here, there was about, I would say, a universe of maybe 200 to 250 international students at Central State.
That's a lot.
Yes. It was a lot compared to any other university. We had Nigerians, we had Saudi Arabians, we had Ethiopians, we had people from Liberia. So the international student population at Central State was a lot compared to other schools. So we had that variety of experience. And then we're in an African American institution, right? So because I was 17, I was of an open mind, right? I took people simply as they presented themselves. I didn't have like, okay, this guy is African American, this is what my expectation should be, or this guy is Saudi Arabian and this is what my expectation should be, or this guy is from, or this lady is from this. So I was more of an open mind than most people. And I also began to realize, because I stayed on the dorm and hung around campus a lot, I'm like, man, this guy, if it wasn't with his American accent, it reminds me of this guy that I left in Nigeria, because they talk the same, act the same, say some of the same smart things and say some of the same stupid things and act the same way. So that's when I began to realize that, okay, you know what? Different culture, different languages, but essential human beings are all the same. But it also gave me a greater appreciation for the African American experience in the United States, because now I could see the difference in society. Because I lived in Xenia very briefly.
Mm-hmm.
Xenia is the town outside Wilberforce. And so I saw the treatment of African American students by Xenia police and by Xenia commercial entities, that I said, I gotta get out of here.
Well, what did you see in those?
Actually, in Xenia, we had a house party once, and Xenia police came, and the guy that was hosting the party, they threw him to the ground, and they just manhandled him. Unfortunately, in those days, we don't have iPhones or cameras to record anything. And you would drive around town in Xenia in the evening, and every other car was a cop car. And it seemed like they were telling you. So that's when I said, you know what? I have to move to the city of Dayton, where I was more comfortable. So I stayed in Xenia for maybe a year, and then I decided I have to get out of here.
Mm.
Maybe a year and a half. And I decided I had to get out of here.
And when you moved to Dayton, what sticks out about Dayton at that time?
You were less conspicuous, and it was not that obvious. You just faded into the, yeah.
In the culture of the city? What was the city like?
The city was fine, but keep in mind I spent most of my time on campus.
Okay.
So I wasn't in the city of Dayton. I lived in Dayton, but stayed on campus.
I see. And when you mentioned venturing out to D.C., did you travel elsewhere in the United States? What kind of off-campus journeys and outside of Ohio did you take?
Mostly to D.C., because that's where I had lots of friends and family in Washington, D.C. So we would go to D.C. on public holidays, long days like that. We'd be in Washington, D.C.
Mm. And what were your impressions of the nation's capital there?
So we'd arrive late Friday night, go to house parties all weekend long, and then cruise back to Ohio on Sunday. Mm. We were not there during the tourists. We didn't go to all the tourist things. Now, my first impression of actually going through the city was we went to the Million Man March.
Talk about that.
And no, not the Million Man March. We went for the anniversary of
the March on Washington.
The March on Washington, which was 1983. Yes.
That'd be the 20th anniversary.
We went to that. That was the first time I actually experienced DC for what it was. Because we marched and we walked the hallways, saw the monuments, saw all the things. Yeah.
How did it feel to trace that ground, that historical grounds? That's
when you start becoming more American, right? Because you're like, wow, this is the African American experience. To be around that many African Americans and to hear sort of like a quasi replication of what happened on the March on Washington. And I think that was the first time I went to the museums, was just to experience what it was like 20 years before.
You know, DC is kind of a second home to me. So now I am curious, do you remember any of the neighborhoods or sections of DC that you may have visited aside from that touristy area?
No. I know what I remember. It was hot.
It was hot.
That day it was hot.
Didn't make it down to Anacostia? Do you know
no.
Okay.
I know it was hot, and we had to pause. Some of us stayed under the shade to take a break, drink some water. I remember that, I'm like, oh my God, I'm from Nigeria and this is hot. Because I never marched that long in Nigeria, but that was my first experience in DC, other than going to house parties.
Yeah.
But I actually thought seriously about transferring to a school in DC.
Which one?
I wasn't sure. I was just saying to myself, I'm going to go to Washington, D.C. And go to college. Because my aunt was there, my uncle was there, I had a lot of friends in D.C. And I said, you know what, let me get out of Ohio and go to D.C. where I know people. I'm glad I did it.
Yeah, what made you stay?
My brother and my friends were all just like, you know what, we're not going to those places. Let's just stay here.
The go-go music in DC didn't pull you in hard enough.
No, but we were listening to go-go music, like I said, during my school days.
Well, let's talk about go-go music, and not specifically, but music in general, right? The radio, WCSU, our first HBCU radio station, goes on the air in 62 or 63, early on there. Was the radio something you were aware of as a student, this station, and did you listen to it as you were a student?
Very, very few times that I listened to the radio.
Okay.
And I definitely did not appreciate the history when I was a student. So I graduated in 85, right? I finished in December of 84, came back and marched in June of 85. Then went to go get my master's degree in Florida. Came back as an employee in 90, right? I knew we had a radio station. That's when I started appreciating the radio station more. That, hey, wait a second, we have this jewel on campus. Mm-hmm. And I always said to myself, man, very few people have the musical collection and variety that I have. And wouldn't it be a great thing to go on the radio station and just play music, right? For an hour or two, just to have people experience a different kind of music. And I would talk to various, because Dr. Tuck Logan, mm-hmm. he was the radio station manager for a long time. And I would mention it to him, like, you know what, I wouldn't mind coming to play music on the radio. And he always said, man, anytime you want to come and play, because you talk about it all the time, but you never do it. And I said, yeah, one of these days I'll do it. So that's when I really started appreciating the radio station as to what it had to offer. And then, I think it was 2018 or 2019, I'm sitting at the lounge with the radio station manager. I can't believe Robert. I can't believe I'm going to forget his name.
Let me see.
I can see his face, tall brother. We talk a lot.
Not Robert Trent Newell?
No.
No.
Trent was a personality on the radio.
Is it Robert Franklin?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And he and I are sitting at the lunch, and I'm going on and about this radio program that I thought I would have. He said, yeah, you're talking about it. Why don't you come over and do it? I said, oh, Mr. Franklin, I'm not sure. He said, well, whenever you want to do it, just come over. I go over there, get in the studio, practice for an hour, and that was all she wrote. And then I started my program, and the name of the program was My Favorite Things.
Okay, and what were your favorite things? Tell me about the program and your formatting and how you made choices about it.
So I told him, so my original title for the program was My World of Music, right? Because I had collections, literally that my collections of music, wherever I saved them, I called them My World of Music, because it represented the world, because they had different genres, but it was my world.
Mm-hmm.
So when he spoke, he said, you know what? Why don't we call them My Favorite Things? Because he said, you have such an eclectic collection, right? I mean, I had bossa nova from Brazil, I had jazz, I had Afro beats, I had Afrobeat, I had juju music, I had classical music, I had rock, I had pop, I had religious music, Nigerian, I had African American religious music, I had religious music from the Episcopalian Church, I had rap, so I had reggae, and within reggae I had dancehall, I had the Bob Marley type, then I had the Shabarangs, to the newer ones. So I had this wide collection of music that I listened to. So he said, hey, let's call it My Favorite Things. And it's a 3-hour show. And the first 20 minutes could be so wildly different from the last 20 minutes. And he said, hey, if we use My Favorite Things as your title, our opening song would be John Coltrane's My Favorite Things, jazz piece, or you could use the Luther Vandross version, or you could use the original version from The Sound of Music. So that's how we came up with the title. And it was a 3-hour show.
And what day of the week again?
Thursday nights from 6 to 9. Okay. What I did not appreciate until I started it was it was a 3-hour show, but it took about 9 hours to produce. And I tell people that it's not just that you show up at the radio station and you start playing music for 3 hours. And I was very particular about when I was going on here, what I was going to sound like, and what people were going to experience.
Yeah, well, how did you cultivate that identity on air?
So, over the weekends or weeknights, I go to my music collection and select songs. So if I say the first hour is going to be juju music, right? Then I have to select the juju music, the songs, select the artist, learn something about the artist. I have to time the sequence so that the first 20 minutes before you go to audio break, you have to have you have to have something to say within those 30 seconds about the song, about the musician. And then what the 3 hours are going to be like, what's the theme for each section of the hour. And so depending on what I was going to do, some days I'm just saying, well, today we're going to feature songs that have awesome guitar solos. Or some days we're going to feature songs that have the country title or a city title in its name. Or we're going to feature songs that's talking about lost love. Or today we're going to do a show that's just focused on Bob Marley. So producing was a lot. When I got to the studio and I started playing the music, that was the easy part. And because of the time of the show, I'd be in the studio by myself. Everybody would be gone.
So you're not working with other station employees?
Right. So it was just me. Now Wade, Wade, who was working in the studio then, opens the door for me and lets me in so I could get started. But most of the time, I was in the studio by myself. And so I'll be playing the music. Everybody's gone, and I'm just playing the air guitar and singing and acting a fool by myself, because it became like it was a relief and a release for me just listening to music. And because of Facebook, I tell people on Facebook that I'm going live, and then people, my friends and family from all over the world will be sending reactions on Facebook as the music is being played. And even some of my co-workers be like, oh, are you going on the air tonight? I'd be like, yeah. And they'd be like, okay, well, I'm going to listen to your show from 6 to 9. And my wife, faithfully, always on Thursdays at the WCSU radio turned on, and she and my son would listen to me play music and talk. So it was just, and because when I started playing music in Nigeria, I played music for the audience and for people to enjoy themselves. So this was like, here I am at the radio station, and people are listening to what I'm saying and playing all over the world. Mm-hmm. So that was very good.
Yeah, what was your wife's name? What is your wife's name?
Bridget. My wife's name is Bridget.
And where did you two meet?
In Dayton. We met in Dayton at what back then was called a happy hour. She worked at Dayton Power and Light back then. I worked at Central State. And I just walked into this happy hour on August 7, 1992. And I saw her and I said, well, I think that's the one. She claims that I didn't know what I was talking about, but I told her that's how it happened.
And, what was you've touched on it a little bit, but what was the feedback from listeners? How did you get a sense of how your program was received?
Because people would always say, oh, I want to know when you're coming on. And I'm going to, what do you call it, appointment radio? Mm-hmm. That's the kind of feedback that I got. Because people, my friends and my family and everybody that listened, one thing they said, they appreciated the show because they never knew what I was going to play.
Were you the only sort of quote-unquote world music show, or was there anything as eclectic, or was it mostly just jazz as the station's tradition?
Yeah, it was mostly just jazz at that point in time. So, yeah, people just said they listened at Thursday at 6 o'clock because I could come one day and it's Aretha Franklin's gospel album that starts off the show. I could come one day and it's Led Zeppelin that starts off the show. I could come one day it's Mozart that starts off the show. Or they could come one day it's Bob Marley. So people always just said, they turned on because, like, we don't know what you're going to play. If we don't know it, it then forces them or allows them to go find out about it. So that was the feedback, was like, keep the variety going.
And are you listening to other programs at any point? Are you starting to listen to the station more outside?
I'm starting to listen to the station more, especially during the drive time. When I'm coming in the morning, like I would listen to Trent's show in the morning, and then I would listen to the religious musics on Sunday.
The gospel show.
The gospel.
And Is it only music on the station, or, in the history of HBCU radio, there are sort of public service, there's community voice, there's all sorts of different kinds of programming. What do you recall?
So there was other people before and after me that did community projects and brought interviews with newsmakers on the show, and then of course we had NPR programming that we played that was also available on the show. But yeah, so there was a variety of programming, and I listened more once I became a personality on the station.
Well, give me the quick and dirty about your sort of academic career here that has developed at Central State, and I want to know, what did it feel like to return back to Central State and become a part of administration, or to be working on campus at that level?
So as I said, I finished in June of '85. I finished December of '84 and March, June of '85. Went to Miami in '86 to get my MBA. Came back to Dayton, and even though I had an MBA, I didn't have a full-time professional job in my field yet. So I was working as an assistant manager at the Zinnia Pizza Hut. And my faculty advisor, Miss Caroline Wright, I stayed in her office. My last year and a half at Central State, I stayed in her office every day because she was my advisor, and she also happened to have snacks in her office. So I go there to talk to her about my major, but to get some cookies and chips. So I was at Pizza House as an assistant manager working. She came in one day for lunch. She said, "Morax, what are you doing here?" I said, "I'm working." She says, "Did you get your MBA?" I said, "Yes, I did." I said, "But right now I'm working at Pizza Hut until something better comes along." She says, "Well, I think I might have a position for you in my office." I said, "Okay, how much are you paying?" So she told me the salary. I'm like, "What are your hours?" She says, "You work 8 to 5 and you get all these public holidays off." I'm like, "Whoa, it's much better than Pizza Hut." So that's how I ended back at Central State as a buyer too in the purchasing department in January of '90. But I told Miss Wright, "Hey, Miss Wright, I'm only here for like a year or two because I need to go into the real world and make some money." I said, "Central State doesn't pay the salary that I'm looking for." After about 1 year, she said, "Yeah, you're too talented and too ambitious for the role that you have here, so I'm going to see if I can find something for you on campus." And so I got transferred to what was then called the Office of Sponsored Programs and Research to manage technical programs and some international programs.
What kind of programs would you focus on?
So the first one I did was, there was a program called the Ohio Procurement and Technical Assistance Center, which is, we provided technical assistance to small businesses who were trying to do business, who were trying to engage in transactions with the federal government. So that was the first program that we worked on. And then moved on to bigger and better things.
You're the president of this university now. Give me that. What is that immediate history, and tell me how you came to be the university president at your alma mater.
So, as I said, I've been here for almost 30 years, well, over 30 years. I had been assuming different roles along the way. So I went from a buyer to a assistant project manager, then to a project director for several projects, then to an operations manager for what was then the largest grant in the history of the university. It's called the Family and Community Violence Prevention Act, funded by the Office of Minority Health of NIH.
Is that the $20 million?
No,
grant?
That grant was $70 million.
$70 million, wow.
Over 7 years. And while I was in that role, the university was going through some financial challenges, and so we had some government officials on campus who were looking at the university's accounting records. So when they came to my office, they asked Tina Casting and I were in the office together. They asked us for all kinds of records about the grant, and we were able to produce them immediately. So they went back to the administration and said, hey, wait a second, this guy over there is running a grant, and his records, their records are meticulous. Everything we asked for, we got. But when we went to your central business office, they can't provide anything. We think you should move that guy to your central grants office to take care of what you need. So that's how I came. So for like a period of several months, I was working 2 jobs. So that's how I came to central administration as the grant. We actually started what was called the Grants Accounting Office. I forget what year it was.
Is this during the Garland administration, or is this after that?
This was before the Garland administration. And so I came over here then. And then when President Garland came, we were doing post-award, right? That's what we were doing at that time. Well, and then in 98, 99, they decided to combine both the pre and post-award. We got rid of the pre-award section, and we combined into the office, and we became the Office of Sponsored Programs and Research that handled all pre and post-award grant activities for the university campus. And I did that for about 18 years, and we were extremely successful. And then in 2021, I don't know what happened to my voice.
It's okay. Have some coffee.
And so in 2021, I was promoted to become Associate Provost for Research by Dr. Jack Thomas.
Okay.
So let me back up. In the 12 years of the Garland administration, we moved the university significantly forward.
Yeah, can you speak to what is happening during that time?
Yeah, so during that time, we combined both offices. We started providing customized service to faculty and staff. The university developed a great reputation with federal agencies, the National Science Foundation, all those places where records became claimed. So we got acclaim. And so...
and you have land grant status?
Yeah, not yet.
Not yet, okay.
So at that point in time, we were just very competitive with our faculty and staff. So in 2011, 2012, I and others worked with the president to seek the land grant designation. So we prepared all these materials, and then we were supposed to get the land grant status in 2012 Farm Bill, but that fell through. But we eventually got it in 2014, which of course changed the university's research and public service infrastructure. And so we worked with President Cynthia Jackson Hammond for 8 years, and she was responsible for sending me to a couple of leadership programs, which created pathways towards higher administration on the university campus. And when Dr. Jack Thomas came, I was promoted to Associate Provost for Research. And then in 2022, our research and sponsored activities went from $26 million to $50 million per year. And after that, in 2023, I was promoted to become the Vice President for Research and Economic Development because of our success, both in research and sponsored programs and the land grant areas. And in 2023, I decided to apply for the presidency when it came open. And they did a national search, lots of applicants, and fortune smiled upon me, and I was selected as president, not because I was alumni, not because I worked there for 30 years, but because I was able to present a case about where the university was and where we need to go.
And what is that vision for where the university needs to go?
So we have a unique opportunity as Ohio's only public HBCU and land-grant university. That there's some experiences that can only be provided by CSU. So our vision is where we need to go, is where we want to become a destination learning environment. Meaning we want people to come here intentionally, right? We want people to want to come here. And we want people to stay here as long as they want, and want them to come back as often as they can. So in light of that, we're working on our current strategic plan for 2025 to 2030. And our 4 major goals are to achieve academic excellence, to enhance our research and public service, to develop an infrastructure capable of getting us where we need to be, and to establish operational excellence in everything that we do.
And as you're making this journey through administration here at CSU, who are your greatest mentors? Who's helping to show you the ropes?
So my mentor right now is Dr. George Pruitt. He's my mentor / coach. He was president at Thomas Edison State University in New Jersey for 35 years. And so I met him through the MLI program. And once we met, we just clicked. And he said even after this formal portion of the MLI program is over, he wanted us to maintain a relationship. So Dr. Pruitt has been a mentor, somebody I go to for advice. President Garland is somebody that I go to for advice as the former president of CSU. Dr. Alex Johnson, the interim president, is somebody that I also go through for advice because he was the immediate past president at Central State University. And I also reach out to Dr. Cynthia Jackson-Hammond because she was also a past president of CSU. And I always, whatever decision I'm making, I always talk through with my wife.
What does she do?
Right now, she's home and she's taking care of her mom. Her mom is in advanced stages of Alzheimer's, so she requires 24/7 care.
Where does your Where does your wife's family come from?
Dayton.
Okay.
They're all from Jefferson Township. Well, my wife and them, they moved from Flint, Michigan to Dayton, Ohio.
Okay.
So now they were all from Jefferson Township.
And you mentioned that your parents had passed, and maybe you can tell me when that was, but I'm wondering, as you began this journey here in administration, what they thought about that, and were they proud of you, and how?
Well,
what
my father passed in '88.
Okay.
My mother passed in '94. But they set me on the path.
Yeah, what do you think they would say today?
Yeah, they say, my father would say unbelievable, because I was a rascal when I was growing up. And my mother always knew that I would be something. So I know that my father would be like, wow, you turned out good. And my mother would say, yeah, I knew you would.
Do you ever return to that family compound?
No. Actually, we sold the compound a couple of years ago because my brothers all moved out of Abeokuta. Two of my brothers live in Lagos, and one lives in Ibadan. And they come here quite often. My brothers come here. My brother was here earlier this year, and my other brother is open to come later this year as well, because they come and we all hang out together because we trying to maintain that relationship, and they come to visit my wife and my son. My son now lives, a graduate of CSU, Akintoye. He graduated in 2024, but he lives in the DMV now.
He didn't get involved in the station at all, did he, the radio?
No, but he has more musical talent than I do, because he actually writes songs and he's a rapper, not commercially, but he writes songs and he produces them for his own use.
He's a creative person. A few questions as I move towards our close here, and just around HBCU radio. I want you to kind of give me a sense of what you think HBCU radio affords people, students, particularly black students in America. What is it that is so special about HBCU radio, you think? Remember, these are public, non-commercial stations.
So, people say history, right? Another way to say it is his story, right? That's somebody's story of what happened. Nowadays, the power of communication, narratives. Who creates a narrative? Who sets the narrative? Influences what people think about what is going on. HBCU radio affords universities as students and faculty the ability to say our story, not from anybody else's perspective, but our story. You mentioned earlier about community programs and talking to students. Fortunately for us, now we have a very good communications program where CSU students put things on YouTube. They go around interviewing people and putting video snippets on YouTube. So HBCU radio, to me, is an opportunity for us to tell our story, talk to our people, and share stories from our perspective so people can see what's going on. In addition to that, it allows our students to develop professional skills in producing their own stuff, in managing this program. So not only are you telling your own story, but you're also developing lifetime skills that can help you if you decide to go into communication.
And our project is the HBCU Radio Preservation Project. So, what do you think happens? What's the danger of this medium, radio, if it's lost, as the political climate today is assaulting public radio and educational radio? What is lost if that happens?
I believe the assault on public radio is an assault on history. People are trying to render their version of history as the permanent or the correct one. I don't think it's a coincidence that public radio and other radio stations that have alternative points of view are being attacked. I think it's a deliberate attempt to negate history.
Mm-hmm.
So what is lost? The truth and a comprehensive version of history. I don't ask anybody to tell other communities not to tell their story. But when you start making it impossible for people to tell their story or making it extremely difficult, to me it means that you only want your version of it. Somebody wants only their version of history to be the one that is remembered, which to me is a danger.
What do you want your legacy to be?
So I know that education, right, is the most reliable path for people to improve their socioeconomic conditions, right? That a university education in particular, a bachelor's degree, has chosen to be the most reliable predictor of a person's economic standing. So I want my legacy to be that he provided opportunity for as many people as possible to improve their lives based on their work ethic. And I always tell people, our role as university administrators is to remove as many obstacles as possible in the path of anybody that comes on the university campus to achieve their goals. And I'm not just talking about students. I'm talking about faculty members. We want to make it as easy as possible for them to impart their knowledge. I'm talking about students who want to make it as easy as possible for them to gain knowledge. And for our staff, we want to make it as easy as possible for them to do their work. And as a president at Central State University, I have this is what I intend to do for students. I want to enhance, multiply all the positive experiences that I had as a student at CSU, while reducing, not eliminate, reducing the negative experiences that I had as a student at CSU. I want to eliminate all the negative experiences because I think students need to develop the ability to resolve problems. They need to develop a character of persistence and resiliency while they're in school. So we don't want to create deliberate challenges, but we want students to be able to navigate obstacles as part of the experience at CSU, so that the university produces individuals who can think critically and ask critical questions along their path in life. So my legacy is make sure that everybody that comes to CSU while I'm here, that we reduce all the obstacles for them to achieve what they want to achieve. But that achievement would depend solely on their work ethic.
Mm-hmm. Well, Dr. Kuti, we've covered so much ground today in this interview, but I want to give you a chance, if there's anything that we didn't talk about or that we've missed in your life story here that you want to mention or shout out at the close.
I mean, I am where I am because of my family, my father and mother, because they afforded my brothers and I education. My brothers and I were fortunate to go to, we all went to the same primary school, St. Benedict Primary School. They afforded all of us the education in high school. I went to Comprehensive High School, Ayetoro, and my younger brothers went to Abeokuta Grammar School in Abeokuta. My mother and father enabled us to go to college. All of us went to college. My brothers and I, two of my brothers and I went to Central State. Two of them went to one of them went to UI, and one went to University of Ife. I'm saying all that to say that the power of family to make sure that your education plays a key role is important to where I am today. And that I am also, my wife and I, Bridget, did all we could possibly to make sure that my son got his education. Right, he has a bachelor's from Central State, and right now he's doing his master's program at the University of Maryland. I didn't get to University of Maryland, but my son did. So it's funny how life comes in a full circle.
What's he getting his master's in?
Real estate, property management. So I want to shout out the power of the family and the power of education in moving individuals forward. And our role, my goal as a university president and a leader is to create that kind of environment on the CSU campus. It's a family where we all get along and we're providing education to make sure that people succeed. Again, based on their individual work ethic, because we can create the atmosphere, but unless people are willing to put in the effort, we want to make sure that you achieve based on your work.
Well, Dr. Kuti, this has been a significant contribution to our project, the HBCU Radio Preservation Project, and I just want to thank you again for your time today.
Thank you, Will.